Happy Moon Festival, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the Moon Festival and some of the traditions around it and some things that people do for Moon Festival. We're going to talk about this holiday and some of the things we want to know about it. Okay? So let's get started with some names for the Moon Festival. In Chinese, it's called 中秋节. And in English, there are two different names. A lot of the times, you'll hear people say Moon Festival because this holiday is celebrating that there's a big, giant, full moon. Another name for the holiday is Mid-Autumn Festival. And this is closer to the Chinese name. Mid means middle, and autumn is one of the seasons. It's another name for fall. So spring, summer, fall, winter. You could also say spring, summer, autumn, winter. So this is called the Mid-Autumn Festival. And that's because it happens in the middle of autumn. So that name's a little bit longer, Mid-Autumn Festival. So sometimes people will say Moon Festival just because it's faster and gives you the main idea. Now there are other celebrations similar to the Moon Festival and they're related. So in Korea, there's a holiday called Chuseok. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's similar to the Moon Festival in Taiwan and China. And another holiday in Japan is Tsukimi, which is also similar to the Moon Festival. Both of these are celebrations or holidays that happen in the autumn, and it's about the moon or about the harvest, meaning when people get food from the farm. And you can see in Japan, tsukimi is 月见, which means they are looking at the moon. So very similar to what people do for the Moon Festival in Taiwan. Okay? So we can call it the Moon Festival or the Mid-Autumn Festival. Both names are okay. I think I prefer Mid-Autumn Festival, but a lot of people will say Moon Festival because it's faster. And I think I'll use that today just because it's easier to say. Okay? But what are some things we want to know about the Moon Festival? Well, for Moon Festival, there are many different customs, traditions, and rituals. So, these are three vocabulary words that you should know. They're a little bit tricky and they're all very similar. A custom is a usual way of doing something. Maybe you or your family always do it the same way, or people in one country or in one culture do something a certain way. And that's a very general idea, right? So maybe everybody does it this way. Now that's called a custom. What is a tradition? Well, a tradition is kind of the same. It's the usual way of doing something, but it's a little bit more complicated. So custom is how people usually do something. A tradition is a custom or customs that have been passed from generation to generation. So that means that it's a custom, a way of doing something, but it's passed from grandpa to son and then to his son. So it gets passed from generation to generation. So grandfather to father to son. That's generation to generation. And so that means that a tradition is a custom, the way people do something. But we use the word tradition when you pass it to people younger than you. Okay? Also, for Moon Festival, there are many different rituals. Rituals. This word's a little tricky. Rituals. Now, what is a ritual? A ritual is an action or ceremony with specific steps, meaning something that people will do in a certain way. Like, for example, you could say that every morning making coffee is a ritual for you. Maybe first you put your cup on the counter, then you put the filter on the cup, then you boil the water, you pour the water, and then you enjoy your coffee. You do it the same way every time. So it's an action with specific steps, and there's something special about it. Maybe it gives you a special feeling. So having coffee in the middle, having coffee in the morning is a kind of ritual. But for Moon Festival, there are some rituals, meaning that maybe there are special things that people do in a certain way. A, B, C, D. They follow the steps. So we're going to talk about some customs and traditions and rituals for Moon Festival. One of those things that people do is called 赏月 in Chinese. And this is one phrase, one word. So in Chinese, you say it as one thing. But in English, we don't really have one word that fits with 赏月. If you look up 赏月 in the dictionary, it says to admire the full moon. Ooh. So to admire something means to really like it. Or think it's wonderful, okay? To admire the full moon. That's a good translation, but as you can see, there's not like one or two words to say 赏月. We have to use a phrase or a sentence in English to describe this idea. And so the dictionary says admire the full moon. I think that's okay, but keep it simple. You could say to look at the moon. On Moon Festival, my family will look at the moon. It looks nice. Another way to say it would be to enjoy the full moon. Enjoy means you like something and you're appreciating it. So you can enjoy the full moon. Another way to say it, I think this might be the best way, is gaze at the moon. To gaze at the moon. Now, what does the word gaze mean? To gaze means to look at something for a long time, but in a good way, maybe with love or happy feelings. If I look at you creepy, that's to stare at someone, right? But to gaze at someone is to look at them for a long time, but in a nice way. So maybe that's still creepy, but that's to gaze at someone. Usually it shows there's love or you like something, okay? Now, if you're enjoying the moon or gazing at the moon, we should practice some ways that the moon might look. On Moon Festival, there's always a full moon. That's what you call it. It's a full moon because it's a full circle. It's a complete circle. It's a full moon, okay? If part of the moon is in shadow, we call that a half moon. It's like you cut the moon in half, okay? If the moon is this little U shape, we call that a crescent moon. Crescent moon. A crescent is this shape. It's a curve shape. That's called a crescent. And then if the moon is completely in shadow, it's all black, or maybe it's super, super dark. Maybe you can see it a little bit. That's called the new moon. Why is it called a new moon? It's called a new moon because it's going to begin the cycle again. It's going to start to grow and become a full moon again. So we call it new, the new moon. Okay? So Chang'e is something that people do on Mid-Autumn Festival. And we might say you gaze at the moon or enjoy the full moon. And when you're gazing at the moon, what are you looking for? Well, the moon is really pretty, of course, right? But can you try to see something on the moon? Maybe there's an astronaut. Or maybe there's a person. Who lives on the moon? Oop. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Let's practice making a sentence using what we learned. For Chang'e, we said enjoy the moon or gaze at the moon. You could make a sentence and say, people like to enjoy the full moon on Mid-Autumn Festival. Here we can use the word people, meaning people out there, people in general. We don't know who exactly, but many people. But you can just use the word people. People like to enjoy the full moon on Mid-Autumn Festival. Another way to say it, you could say, on Moon Festival, we like to enjoy the full moon. So you can use the word we if you want to say that it's you including other people in Taiwan. Maybe if you're telling someone from a different country, you would use the word we, like we as in people in Taiwan. Other people from other countries maybe don't do this. So on Moon Festival, we like to enjoy the full moon. Okay, now back to what I was saying before. When you're gazing at the moon, it's so beautiful. What are you looking for? Well, maybe you're looking for a person from a legend. Now, what is a legend? A legend means a story from a long time ago. And another word for this is myth. So legend and myth are very similar. These are kinds of stories from a long, long time ago. A legend, maybe there's a little tiny bit of truth inside the story. Maybe the people in the story might be based on real people. We're not sure exactly. But a myth is a story that's 100% not true. So a legend might be about people doing crazy magical things. A myth is a story that is totally not true. Maybe it's about gods from Greek gods, sorry. So a legend might be about a king from thousands of years ago. A myth might be about a god that we know for sure wasn't true. Okay? And we can practice some phrases that you can use when talking about legends or myths. Usually we use the word legend in these phrases. If there's this old story with interesting things happening, you can use the phrase according to legend, meaning that the legend tells you something. According to legend, blah, 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 blah. That means there's a legend that says this. Another way to say that would be, legend has it that. So whatever I say after is in a legend. Legend has it that, blah, 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 blah. Another thing just like that is, the legend goes that, blah, 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 blah. Meaning that the legend tells this story. Another way to say it is, it said. It said that, blah, 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 blah. Meaning that people say this out there in the world. Okay? So we're going to practice some of these phrases about legends to talk about what we'll find on the moon. So we're gazing at the moon, we're looking for something magical, something legendary, and maybe we see a lady. Oh my God, I think there's a woman on the moon. Who is that? Well, this person is called Chang'e, and She is a legendary character. And when you write her name in English, we write it like this. Chang apostrophe E. Now, when we're writing things from Chinese into English, we have to be a little bit careful. This first word is Chang, right? And so we write Chang, Chang. And the second is which you write as E in pinyin. So Chang'e. Now, why do we need this apostrophe? If we just write Change, well, that looks like the word change in English, right? So to make sure that people don't say her name is Change, we want people to say Chang'e. You put an apostrophe in the middle to show that it's separate, okay? So Chang'e is like that. There's a city in China called Xi'an. To write it in English, well, I'll put it on here so you can see what I'm saying. Xi'an. We write Xi'an with an apostrophe in the middle, because if you write it together, Xian, that looks like Xian or Xian. Maybe Xi'an is very fresh or salty. I'm not sure. So you need that apostrophe to show that it's two different sounds. Xi'an. If it's together, it looks like Xian. It's a salty place. So same thing with Chang'e. We put an apostrophe to show that there are two pieces of her name. So who is Chang'e? How do we use English to describe her? Well, we can use the phrase that we learned on the last page. According to legend. This is like 传统说, or it's in that old story. So according to legend, a woman named Chang'e lives on the moon. Wow, that's pretty cool. But maybe it's a little bit boring up there. Not a lot of fun things to do. But hopefully she's happy up there. So according to legend, a woman named Chang'e lives on the moon. Now, like we said, the word legend is this magical story, but maybe there's a tiny bit of something real in there. And this is the phrase. If it's completely fake, the word is myth. But in this phrase, we use the word legend, even if we're not sure Chang'e was ever a real person. But maybe there was a person like her a long, long time ago. I'm not sure. So, according to legend, a woman named Chang'e lives on the moon. Pretty cool. And you can try to see her up there. She is also known as the goddess of the moon. So we can use this phrase, also known as, to show that someone has more than one name. So she is also known as the goddess of the moon. Now there's a tricky word here for you, the word goddess. Well, a god means some person or creature that's very, very powerful. If we add S to the end, it makes it a woman. So she's a god and she's a woman, so she's a goddess. Kind of like prince and princess. Prince is a man, princess is a woman. God is a man, goddess is a woman. So the goddess of the moon. Pretty cool name, right? Now Chang'e, she's not alone up there on the moon. She might be a little bit bored because the moon is just rock, but she has a friend with her. Her friend is Yue Tu, and in English you can call him the moon rabbit. Okay, the moon rabbit. Pretty cool, right? Another name for this rabbit is called Yu Tu, the jade rabbit. Jade is a green kind of stone. And I'm not sure why he's called the Jade Rabbit, but anyways, that's his name in a lot of stories. We can call him the Moon Rabbit or the Jade Rabbit. Both are okay. And so, using one of our phrases, we can say, legend has it that Chang'e lives with her pet rabbit, the Jade Rabbit. Okay, so she's not lonely. She's with her pet rabbit. And we can use legend has it to say that, oh, there's an old story that says this, but maybe it's not true. Legend has it. And why do people think that there's a rabbit on the moon? Well, the moon has spots on it. In English, we call this the man on the moon. We think the spots look like a man's face. So, the man on the moon. But in Chinese culture, people think it looks like a rabbit. So, here's the tail, here's his body, here's his head, and here are the two ears. Kind of looks like a rabbit, right? So, the moon rabbit. And I guess right here, maybe that's something he's working on. He's doing some work for Chang'e. Also, this rabbit was in a famous story called The Journey to the West, 西游记. The Journey to the West is a story about the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. In English, we call him the Monkey King or Sun Wukong, which is just Sun Wukong, but in American style. And I guess the Monkey King fought against the moon rabbit at one point in the story. That's pretty wild. But luckily, the rabbit was okay. Okay, so Chang'e is with her friend, the moon rabbit, up there on the moon. That's who we can gaze at when we're looking at the moon on Moon Festival. But also, why is Chang'e up there? Well, part of the story is her husband, and his name is Hou-yi. You might know him. So what Hou-yi did was, legend has it that there were 10 sons, and Hou-yi shot 9 of the sons because it was too hot. And so after that, there was only one son left, and everyone was happy. Yay! And so as a reward, he got something called a 不死药, which in English, you could translate it in 2 different ways. Now, here's a hard word for you. Immortality pill. Immortality pill. So in some places, people will write it as immortality pill. A pill is one little piece of medicine that you swallow. I think it sounds more interesting or more magical if it's called the potion of immortality. And a potion is a magical drink. And so you drink it and there's some magic to it. That's called a potion. It also could be called an elixir. So I've seen it called the elixir of immortality. Now, immortality is a hard word here. In the middle of the word is mortal. Mortal means you're alive or you are like a regular human. So everyone has their mortality. Mortality means like humanity, the fact that you're a regular person and you will die someday. If we put im means not. Immortal means not mortal. Mortal means a regular person. Immortal means that you are not a regular person because you can't die. So this guy, Hou-yi, he got 不死药. The word yao in Chinese means medicine, but in English we would say what kind of medicine? We'd say either a pill or a potion. But because it's magic, potion sounds better. It sounds more interesting. I have a question or a comment. There's a kind of jade that is light green. It almost looks like white. The rabbit is as white as the jade. That's why we call it 玉兔, the jade rabbit. Okay, thank you so much for the comment, Chimpe. So yeah, the rabbit is called the jade rabbit because some jade is almost white. So that's a really cool fact. I didn't know that. I'm used to jade that's kind of a bright green color. I don't know if I've ever seen white jade or jade that's close to white. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so back to Hou-yi. Hou-yi shot 9 of the suns and got this potion of immortality, this magic drink that makes it so you live forever. And the story, there are different stories for what happened. He got 2 of them, one for him and one for his wife, Chang'e. But something happened. Different stories tell different things, but Chang'e drank both potions. If she drank one potion, she would live forever. But when she drank the second potion, it gave her too much magic and she floated away into space and she landed on the moon. And so she lives on the moon now. But then poor Hou-yi, he stayed down on the ground, on Earth. Okay, so the potion of immortality, that's a pretty cool word to learn. Potion is really common if you play video games. There might be a potion of health or a potion of speed or to make you go faster or a potion of strength to make you stronger. So it's a pretty useful word if you play some games. It's a magic drink. Okay, now let's use our phrase to talk about Hou-yi. The legend goes that Hou-yi received 2 potions of immortality for shooting down 9 of the 10 suns. So the phrase, the legend goes, means that there's a legend and this is what it says. The word goes is kind of like says. The legend goes. We don't say the legend says, but that's the main idea. Okay? So he received 2 potions of immortality for shooting down 9 of the 10 suns. The word for here is because we're giving the reason he got these potions. Okay? Okay, so that's about Hou-yi. Now let's take a look at those phrases one more time. So for talking about magical stories like Chang'e and Hou-yi, we can use the phrases according to legend, legend has it that, or the legend goes that, or it's said that. So these are really useful if you're telling a really old story and telling someone about culture. But that's not really useful in regular life, right? Because we don't talk about legends all the time, maybe once in a while. But according to legend, if we change the word legend to a person's name, you can say that, oh, I heard it from that person. So you could say, oh, according to David. So maybe you have a coworker named David. According to David, the meeting will be at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So that means David told you this. So David told you, you're sharing it with someone else. Or you could change it to another person like Rebecca. According to Rebecca, we're going to send the letter to blah, 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 blah. Okay? So that's the person who told you. Okay. This other phrase, legend has it. If it's a magical story from a long time ago, you can say, legend has it that, blah, blah, blah. And then you explain the old story. But if you're talking about what you've heard recently, change the word legend to story. Maybe you heard a rumor or some gossip. Gossip is 八卦. So if you heard some gossip about like, oh, I heard about the boss, you can use the word story has it. Hey, story has it that the boss broke up with his girlfriend. Oh my gosh. So maybe you're sharing a story you heard. You don't know if it's true or not, but it's a story you heard. Okay? Just like that, the same way you can take the legend goes that and change the legend to the story. You're explaining some situation. Well, the story goes that John got a job at Microsoft before he started working for Apple. So that's telling this long story about something that really happened. Okay? So story has it is usually for something you heard, maybe like a rumor. And the story goes that sounds like you're explaining something that happened in the past. Okay? And then it's said. It's said, you can keep it the same and use it just like when we're talking about legends. It's said that blah, 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 blah. Meaning that people say this. It's a common idea. Okay? Now, this is some of the legends of Moon Festival, but what else do people like to do for Moon Festival? Well, one thing on Moon Festival is灯笼, and in English, you can call these lanterns. A lantern. Or sometimes someone might say Chinese lantern, because if you just say lantern, people will think of a camping lantern in America. But we can call these lanterns. And one custom for Moon Festival is to hang lanterns. So in some places, people will hang lanterns for this holiday. And we can use our phrase, kind of like as the story goes, we can change it to as tradition goes. So like following tradition. As tradition goes, people hang lanterns for Moon Festival. Do you hang lanterns for Moon Festival? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Another tradition that people have for Moon Festival is eating pomelo or pomelo. I forget which it is. So in Chinese, this food is called youzi. And in English, it's written Pomelo. I think it should be pomelo, but some people might say pomelo. Anyways, we don't have this fruit in America, and so I never saw it until I went to Taiwan. I believe, let's say pomelo from now on. So pomelo is a kind of citrus fruit that people like to eat at the Mid-Autumn Festival. And it's this nice light green color. And inside it looks like another citrus fruit, but it's a little bit drier. I think it's pretty good. And so you can say, many people like to eat pomelo for Moon Festival. So do you like this fruit? And how do you eat it? Now, one thing to be careful about is in Chinese, this is called youzi. In English, it's called pomelo. But there are other fruit that are very similar. And maybe if you focus on the word yo in Chinese, you might get a little bit mixed up. So this one that's shaped like a pear and a little bit green is called a pomelo. But there are two related fruits. This one is called yuzu. And this name in English, yuzu, comes from Japanese. In Japanese, they call this fruit youzi. Or I guess in Japanese, it would be yuzu, something like that. In Chinese, it's called Shang'e. And in English, we call it yuzu. And so because in Japanese, it's called youzi, the same as pomelo, you might get a little bit mixed up when you're eating Japanese food. Like there's a kind of sauce that I got, which is called 柚子酱 in Chinese. And I thought it was made with pomelo, but it's actually made with Shang'e, yuzu, this kind of citrus fruit from Japan. It's a little bit smaller than a pomelo. It looks a little bit like, the shape is like an orange. I think the color is like a lemon, but it's somewhere in the middle of all of those. It's kind of like a pomelo, but a little bit sweeter, I think. Okay, and yuzu is a really popular flavor in Japanese food, and it's really good. I like it. Okay, so that's something to think about. Pomelo is what people have for Moon Festival. Yuzu, this thing, or yodzu from Japanese food, is a little bit different. And then another thing that's similar, 葡萄柚, is called grapefruit in English. We don't have any part of the yo in English, so we call it grapefruit, which is kind of similar to the Chinese, right? And one interesting thing about grapefruit is that in America, in the United States, people will have grapefruit for breakfast. It's kind of interesting. So I know my father likes to have grapefruit with his breakfast once in a while. And I think people sprinkle some sugar on it because grapefruit can be kind of sour and bitter. So a little bit of sugar will make it a little bit more sweet. But interesting, people have it for breakfast. Have you ever tried it for breakfast? How do people eat it too? People will cut the grapefruit in half, like this in the picture, and then use a spoon to scoop out the meat from the fruit. Kind of a interesting way to eat a grapefruit, right? If you're having it for breakfast, you don't eat it like this, like how you would eat an orange. People use a spoon. I don't know why. It's just part of American culture, right? And it's a custom that people have. Okay? Now, what else do people do with pomelo? Well, here's some sentences to practice. In Taiwan, people make hats out of pomelo rinds. Okay? People make hats out of pomelo rinds. Again, we can use the word people to talk about people in general. Or you could use the word we if you want to include yourself. Okay? People make hats out of pomelo rinds. Now, this word rind might be a new word for you. Rind is like the skin of a fruit. But maybe you learned a different word, like peel. Like you have a banana with a banana peel, right? The word peel means the skin of a fruit or vegetable. So you have a banana peel, you have to peel carrots, you peel potatoes. That's the skin. We call it the peel. Now, what is a rind? A rind is a kind of peel, but it's the hard skin of a fruit. And usually the rind is thicker and stronger. Okay? You could call this the peel of the pomelo, but rind is what we use for fruits like oranges and lemons and pomelo and watermelons. It's a thick, hard skin. So the pomelo rinds. Okay? Are you a dog person or a cat person? I think they're both pretty cute. I think in this picture, I think the dog is cutest, right? Rewind a little bit. Canis asks, is having fruit in breakfast normal in the US? Yeah, it's pretty normal. Let's think. Yeah, so people will have oranges for breakfast sometimes. People will have grapefruit. And another common thing is having raisins. Raisins are dried grapes. And so not just by itself, but people will have oatmeal and put raisins in the oatmeal. Maybe also if you eat yogurt for breakfast, you might put fruit in the yogurt. Maybe some blueberries or strawberries in your yogurt, or cut a banana into your yogurt. Yeah, so good question. Yes, fruit is pretty common for breakfast in America, but grapefruit is an interesting one, right? Kind of a wake you up with some sour and bitter fruit. Woo! Okay, so in Taiwan, people make hats out of pomelo rinds. Rinds means the skin. What else do people do for the Mid-Autumn Festival? Well, people in Taiwan love to barbecue, 烤肉. So this is an action or what people do, and we can use the word barbecue as an action. You can also write it as BBQ sometimes, but we usually say barbecue. We don't often say BBQ, but you'll see it written on signs a lot. Okay, but barbecue can be an action. It can be a verb. So you could say, we're going to barbecue some burgers tonight. Here, barbecue is the verb, the action. And in the United States, that's one of the most common things to barbecue. You barbecue burgers and dogs, is what people say. Hey, let's barbecue up some burgers and dogs. So burgers means hamburgers, dogs means hot dogs. Okay? So we're going to barbecue some burgers tonight. Barbecue can be a verb. Now, you could say 烤肉会, like a party where people are barbecuing, right? In English, you can just say barbecue. So barbecue can be a noun, meaning a party or a get-together with friends and family. So this is the name of the kind of party, a barbecue. So I might say, I'm hosting a barbecue on Saturday. Want to join? So here, a barbecue is an event, kind of like a party. So I'm hosting a barbecue. And that's a really common thing in the summertime in the United States. Someone might have a barbecue at their house. Don't say barbecue party, just say barbecue. Okay? Now, this thing that you use to cook, you can call this a barbecue, but you can also call it a grill. Grill means the flat part where you put the food. So the whole big thing, you can call it a barbecue or a grill. Both are fine. Now, what people put on the barbecue, we already said burgers and dogs. But also, if you have a stick with things stuck on the stick, oh my gosh, that's a crazy sentence. A stick with things stuck on the stick, like maybe some vegetables, maybe some pieces of sausage. That's called a kebab. Kebab. Now, I'm not sure which language this comes from, but English loves taking words from other countries. So we use the word kebab to talk about food on a stick. Okay? And my mom made kebabs like a week ago. She put onion and tomato and peppers and sausage onto a kebab, put it on the grill, and cooked it up, and it was delicious. So go have some kebabs this weekend. Okay? Now, one last thing that people do for the Moon Festival, of course, you have to have moon cakes, right? There are many different kinds of moon cakes. This kind has egg yolk in the middle, or you could say salted egg yolk. I think moon cakes are pretty good. I don't love the kind with egg yolk inside. I like the interesting flavors. Like I had a coffee flavored mooncake a few weeks ago, and that was amazing. So remember, for Moon Festival or the Mid-Autumn Festival, you need to make sure to have a mooncake. So we could say, for Mid-Autumn Festival, make sure to enjoy a mooncake and a nice cup of tea. So I hope you can enjoy a mooncake and a cup of tea and relax and gaze at the moon. Maybe when you're gazing at the moon, you can enjoy the full moon, and up there on the moon, you can see this lovely goddess, the goddess of the moon, Chang'e, and she's living up there on the moon. And you can say, wow, hi Chang'e, how are you today? Would you like a mooncake? And then Chang'e can say, no, I'm full, thank you, but my friend, the moon rabbit, is up here with me and he wants a bite. And then you can send a mooncake to the moon rabbit up there with Chang'e. Or maybe, because you're down here on Earth, you can get together with our friend Ho-E and have a nice barbecue with him and your other friends. Maybe he can find another potion of immortality so we can have a nice party. Okay? And then we talked about some other traditions like lanterns, pomelos, barbecue, and mooncake. So that's it for our talk about Moon Festival today. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something new. And I hope you can go enjoy this wonderful holiday with your friends and family. Maybe you can have a nice barbecue. Maybe you can eat some pomelo. Maybe you can wear a pomelo hat and do something fun, okay? So thank you everyone for joining. I hope you had a good time. If you have some mooncakes and tea, go have a snack, go drink a sip of tea and enjoy it for me because I finished all of my mooncakes. Oh no, I'm so hungry. I'm kidding, it's okay. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful Mid-Autumn Festival and get out there, gaze at the moon, say hi to Chang'e and the white rabbit or the moon rabbit, and have a wonderful time. Okay? Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.